It started with a single sentence, sharp, dismissive, and loud enough to echo through the chambers of Congress. Asterisk, sit down, boy. Asterisk, those 3 words spoken by Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez cut through the air like a blade. The room went silent. All eyes turned to Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana, the man she had just insulted in front of the nation. Asterisk, the cameras were rolling. The country was watching. Asterisk, but what no one expected, what not even AOC herself could have predicted, was the way John Kennedy responded. Not with anger, not with pride, but with a kind of grace and depth that silenced even his loudest critics and left America in tears. It was meant to be a routine oversight hearing, one of dozens that happen. Each year, the committee was discussing education funding, a topic that often brings passionate debate from both sides. Asterisk, Senator John Kennedy, known for his folksy charm and southern wit, leaned into the microphone with his usual calm. Asterisk, I don't care. If you went to Harvard or homeschool, he began, if a child can't read by 3rd grade, we've failed him. He was trying to make a point practical, sharp, and direct. But across the table, AOC didn't hear pragmatism. She heard condescension. She furrowed her brow, adjusted her glasses, and fired back. Asterisk, with all due respect. Senator Kennedy, we're talking about systemic injustice, not your bedtime stories from the bayou. Asterisk, the room chuckled uneasily. But then came the line that would make headlines. Asterisk, you're out of touch. Sit down, boy. Asterisk gasps. Camera zoomed in. Reporters' fingers flew over their keyboards. For a long, aching moment, John Kennedy said nothing. Asterisk, he didn't flinch. He didn't stand up. He didn't speak. Asterisk, instead, he looked at AOC with a strange softness in his eyes. Not anger, not wounded pride. Something deeper. Something human. Asterisk. Then slowly he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper, creased and worn, as if it had lived there for years. I'll sit down, he said quietly. But before I do, let me read you something. He unfolded the paper and began to read, his voice steady but laced with emotion. My name is Elijah. I'm 9 years old. Live in Monroe, Louisiana. I want to be a pilot, but my school don't got no computers. We use old books. I don't got a library. But Senator Kennedy came and told us we matter. The room fell still. He didn't come with cameras, Kennedy continued. He came with books, with pencils, with hope. Another pause. Elijah wrote me this letter a year ago. He's one of thousands of kids in poor districts who've been forgotten. And if fighting for them makes me out of touch, then I hope I never fit in. Asterisk, AOC's expression shifted. Her arms, once crossed defensively, now hung loosely at her sides. Asterisk, Kennedy looked around the room. I'm not here to trade insults. I'm here because I still believe that every child, white, black, rich, poor, red state, blue state, deserves a future. He folded the letter and tucked it back into his coat. And now, Congresswoman, I'll sit. What most people didn't know about John Kennedy was that before he ever set foot in Washington, he taught high school in a poor district of Louisiana. It was a brief chapter in his long career, but it left an imprint. Asterisk, he remembered what it felt like to grade. Papers under a flickering light, to watch kids show up hungry. To see dreams suffocate under poverty. He never forgot, even when he rose through the ranks, became a senator, and gained a national voice. Carried that past with him like a second skin. Asterisk, so when AOC's words cut deep, they didn't strike his pride, they struck his mission. Asterisk, and that's why his response wasn't a counter-punch, it was a lifeline. Later that day, AOC was seen alone in the Capitol garden, pacing, thinking. Asterisk, she didn't issue an immediate apology. That wasn't her way. Asterisk, but 2 days later, during a press conference on education, she paused her speech midway and said, Asterisk, there's a man in the Senate, John Kennedy, who reminded me of something this week, that our words can divide, or they can deliver. I chose wrong that day, but I heard him. I hope the nation did too. Asterisk, it wasn't a full apology. But it was a crack in the wall, a gesture of respect. And Kennedy, true to form, didn't gloat. Asterisk, he simply smiled and said, I don't need an apology. I need allies for kids like Elijah. The moment went viral. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was real. In a time when America seemed split at the seams, red versus blue, left versus right, young versus old, this moment reminded people of something deeper. Our shared humanity. Asterisk. Kennedy's letter was reprinted in newspapers. Elijah was invited to speak on TV. Donations poured into his school, allowing them to buy their first full computer lab. Asterisk, and somewhere in that noise, amidst tweets and headlines, quiet truth settled into the heart of America. Asterisk, it's not strength to insult. It's strength to rise above it. Years later, Senator Kennedy would be asked about that moment on a Sunday morning talk show. Asterisk, he chuckled and said, I didn't mind the boy part. I've been called worse. But I wanted folks to understand when you respond with kindness, you don't lose power. You gain purpose. He paused. And sometimes the best way to stand tall is to sit down with grace. The interviewer asked him if he still carried Elijah's letter. Kennedy smiled, tapped his coat pocket, and said, Always. Let this story remind us, asterisk, our politics may differ. Our backgrounds may clash. But in the end, what we say matters. Far less than how we make others feel. Asterisk, because courage isn't in shouting louder, it's in listening deeper. Asterisk, and sometimes the most powerful response is the one that chooses compassion over pride. Asterisk, let's be more like Elijah. Let's be more like John Kennedy in that moment. Let's choose grace. Every single time. End asterisk.